Welcome in our maths lesson today, and we are going to look at goods and services tax, the GST, goods and services tax. Usually, if you have happened to do shopping, if you have happened to go and check on the receipt, you'll always find that there is some tax that is charged. When you talk about goods and services tax, this one is normally tax that is charged by all government, including the government of Australia. It is the tax charged on those goods that you always buy. Mainly, that is one source of revenue to the government. This tax is usually passed to the consumer, so when you buy goods, it is already inclusive. However, not all goods are taxed. There are some goods which are very essential, which are very necessary, like drugs, education, materials, food. It may not be taxed. Mostly, in fact, most countries don't tax those essential commodities. In Australia, the tax percentage remains at 10%. So for every purchases you make on taxable goods, you'll always pay 10% of goods and services tax. I want you to look at these prices before the GST was included and after the GST. So looking at a certain commodity whose price was $180 before the goods and services tax, but after it was going at $198. That is a total of an increase of about that's 198 minus 180, which will give us $18. So the question that comes, what is this 18? Or what percentage has it been multiplied by so that we arrive at that? For us to get this, we are supposed to find out what percentage of the original, what percentage does $18 represent, and 18 of the original. So we would calculate it by saying we want to find what does $18 represent. This is 18 over 180 multiplied by 100. When you do that, you'll get this one is equivalent to 10%. So, how much was paid as tax in this transaction? It is a total of $18. What percentage was 18%? We have seen it is 18. It is 10%. Now, so what number could be in the place of this box? In this box, what number should be there to make 198? It will be the original cost at 100%. plus the percentage in the box, the percentage for the tax, which is 10%, which gives us 110%. So this place should be having 110%. So 180 multiplied by 110%, we shall get $198. Now, supposing the GST was 12%, supposing the GST was 12%, that simply means, what does 12% represent? So we shall first be required to find the GST as the value. After that, then we do what? We work out how much it is and what percentage it will represent. But the question is asking us, supposing it was 12%, what would this box be having? So what goes here is the total percentage of a whole, 100%, plus the percentage of what? GST, which is 100, which is 12. When you add that, you'll find that what would come here, what would come in the box would be 112%, and that one so we are looking at 112%. This one would give us $201.6, $201.6. So when we talk about the GST, Goods and Services Tax, which is a method of raising government revenue, first, we should look at the percentage. We should be conversant with the percentage that is charged. And we are saying here, mostly the GST will depend on the country's economy. And in Australia, it is charged at 10%. And this 10%, it is of the selling price. So normally this is paid by the consumer. You, the buyer, you are the one who will meet the cost of the 10% as you buy the goods, because it has already been included in the commodity. And having paid this, the seller passes it to the government. And the body that collects the body that collects this tax is a government body. Now, also, besides knowing that 10% is what is charged on sale price, we must also know that the final advertised goods here are already inclusive of the cost plus the 10%. So I want to tell you that the final commodity that is advertised is at 110%. 110%, which is cost plus the GST, which is 10%. In calculating our GST, we can also use a method we call the unitary method. The GST, we are saying the unitary method can be used to find the GST included in the price of a commodity or of an item. Now also, as we use this unitary method, this word unitary simply means one. So in most cases, it is simply applying or finding the unit, that is the 1%. It involves finding what one unit pertains, usually 1%. So when we talk about 1%, we need to reduce everything to 1% first, and then we go ahead and find what would be the 10%. Now let us see how these are applied by looking at the following questions. Calculate the GST payable on a table that a manufacturer values at $289. We want to calculate the GST, which means this one is already, when we talk about this, we need to find, this is the cost, so we need to calculate the GST that will be charged on this. So when they talk about the GST, we are talking about the 10% of the cost. So in this case here, if it is valued at $289, we want to find out what is the 10%. So GST is 10% of $289. To find it, we convert. And this one will give us, when you work on this one will give us $28.9. $28.9. So this is a calculation of GST. And GST, when we calculate this percentage, it is supposed to give us in dollars. We say this. We say that when we are dealing with monetary issues, the decimal places should be rounded off to how many decimal places? 2 decimal places. For this, so we don't leave it at 28.9 because we are looking at it in a form of amount, which is dollars. So we round off to 2 decimal places. So it will be equivalent to $28.90. So we want to calculate the GST payable on a bill from a landscape gardener of $2,190. So just as we have seen, the method remains GST is equals to 10% of the cost, and this time the cost of this labor is $2,190. So it will be 10% of 2,190. Our conversion remains, this is 10 over 100 of means multiplication of 2190. When you simplify this, you'll find this one will give us $219. So the GST payable by a gardener who is earning $2,190 is $219. So a bike has GST of $38 added to the price. What is the price of the bike? So in this question, we don't have the percentage, but we have been given the GST as amount, that is $38. we know the GST is equivalent to 10%, which implies that the $38 is equivalent to 10%. But the question here is, what is the price of the bike? So to approach this, we first agree that 10% is equal to $38. If I use unitary method, then I'll simply look for 1%. What does 1% represent? And you realize that 1% represents 38 divided by 10, which is equivalent to $3.80. Now, our interest was to find what? Our interest was to find the price of the bike. So we first look at the cost. The total cost would be the cost itself would be 100%. So what is 100%? So to find 100%, given that 1% is simply $3.80, what is 100%? This will be equivalent to 3.80 multiplied by 100. It gives us, the cost is $380. But we want to find the price at which this bike will be sold at, which means we shall take the cost and add the GST, which is that $8. So the cost of the bike. For us to find the cost of this bike, we shall be required to simply, this is 100%. And in it we've charged 10%. So what is the cost? So to find the total cost, we shall take 380, we are looking at the selling price, plus the GST, which is that 8. When you add this one together, it will give you $418. Just to repeat and make it clear here, we have used unitary method to make sure that we have the representation of 1%, and we've seen 1% is equivalent to 3.8. How about 100%? 100% will be equivalent to 3.8 multiplied by 100, which is $380. And if 380 is the cost, if you want to sell that bike, it will be the cost plus the GST. This is what gives us the final cost of the bike. So if we were to look at this, we would say that 380 is the cost before. And 418 is our cost after. That is how we look at it. Now, the final price at a cafe, including the 10% GST, was at $137.50. What was the pre-GST price of the meal? So when we look at 137, what percentage is it equivalent to? You must have seen that $137.50 is equivalent to the cost 100% plus the GST percentages, which is 110. So we say that 110% is equivalent to $137.50. If we choose to use unitary method, then we shall ask ourselves, what is the value of 1%? 1% will be equivalent to $137.50 $1.50 divided by 110. And when you do this, because you are looking for the value of 1%, 1% will give us 1.25. It will give us 1.25. If 1% is $1.25, what is our 100%? Because we are interested in finding the cost, the pre-cost of this meal. So it will be 100% will be equal to 100 multiplied by 100 and 1.25. That is, we said earlier on, when you're multiplying a decimal and a number which is the power of 10, then the decimal point moves to the right. The number of decimal point places is equivalent to the number of zeros. We have 2 zeros, so 1.25 will move from there, 1.25 to 125. Now, this 125 is 100%. Remember, what is charged on commodities is already inclusive. That's why $137.50 is equivalent to 110%. We approached this question using unitary method, so we looked for 1%, which was equivalent to 1.25. Therefore, 100% is equal to 100 times 1.25, which gives us $125. This is the cost of that meal before the GST was imposed. Now, I want you to have your calculator as we go through the following. We should be able to identify where we require to calculate the 10% or where we are required to find the final cost, which is 110%. Remember, the 10%, which you are calling the GST percentage, remains constant. That is what is always charged on items in Australia. So it will remain constant anytime you are looking for the GST. It is at 10% of the cost. So let us look at the following. So we have to complete this table. The first column, we have price at no GST. Then we have 10% GST, and we have price inclusive of the GST. For the first one, it is simple. This is price in dollars. So for the first one, we find that this 10% of $100 is equivalent to $10. And when we talk of price inclusive, we shall take cost price before and the GST, that is 100 plus 10, it gives us $110.00. Now, when you come to $50, what is 10% of $50? That one represents the GST, which you'll find that this one will be 10 multiplied by 10 over 100 multiplied by 50, and you'll find this one will give you an equivalent of $5. So if you want to find the price inclusive of GST, it is $50 plus $5, which will give us 55. Now, at your own time, I want you to also carry out the remaining. As you fill this table, you find that the method here is very simple. The only thing I want to add is, if at all we want just to go straight and get what is on the third column. This one, remember, if this one is 10%, this one represents 110%. In other words, if you don't want to calculate and add, you can look for 110% directly. For example, 150 is our 100%. What is 110% of 150? Using our calculator, you find that this one gives us 110% of 150 is equivalent to $165. So you can now subtract and find what was the 10% equivalent to. 165 minus 150, it will give us $15. So that is how you'll fill the rest. Now, I want us to now look at the best way possible of calculating percentage change, profit, and loss. Calculating percentage change, profit, and loss. We all know what percentage change would mean. We know what profit is. We know what loss is. But now we want to see how we should be able to calculate it, and so that we can give it as a percentage, either change, whether it was profit, that is a percentage, a positive percentage change you gained, and this one you lost. Now, I want to look at a very simple approach. We have a friend who chooses to go for actually a cinema, and he buys a ticket. If he bought a ticket at James bought a ticket at $80. He was supposed to go and watch a movie. Then by evening, he realized he's late. He decides to sell it. Because he was late, James sold the ticket at $75. So you realize that he bought at 80, he has sold it at 75. Is it a gain or a loss? So you realize that definitely it's a loss. And if it's a loss of how much? There is a loss of $5. So this were $5 is what we are looking for. We want to represent it as a percentage change or a percentage loss. So the question would be, what is the percentage loss that James lost? So this will be taken as the change or the loss he made, which is $5, over the price at which he bought the ticket, which is 80. And then just like fraction, changing into percentage, you multiply by 100. And when you do this one, you'll find that this one is going to give us 6. We're talking of 5%. Oh, yeah, it's okay. Now, we are looking for 5/80, and we convert it into 100%. So we need to multiply by 100%. This one is going to give us there 50/8. This is a fraction. You can simplify further. If you simplify, you find it's equivalent to 25/4. And 25/4 will give us 6 and 1/4%. So the percentage loss that James made by selling his ticket worth $80 and was sold at the cost of $75 was a loss of 6.25%. These percentage changes can also be seen when you are making discounts or when you are giving discount when selling items. So what do we need to know when working out the percentage change of the profit and loss. First, we should know what price is. We should know what profit is. We should know what loss is. We have already known that our price, that is the cost or the selling price, is always the final cost, or which is inclusive of the GST. But this time now, we are not interested about the GST. We are interested of that price alone and the loss or the gain this person is making. So what is profit? Profit is simply the selling price minus the cost price. Then we define loss. Loss is the cost price that is if what you sold was below the cost at which you acquired your item. So in calculating the percentage change, whether it was percentage change in form of profit or percentage change in form of a loss, we would look at the change over the original value multiplied by 100. If you do this, you have been able to simply find the percentage change, be it positive change or negative change, as you can see on the side of the loss here. If we are to calculate straight on what it refers, for example, if we are looking for the profit, then we can simply say percentage profit is equals to profit over the original value multiplied by what? Multiplied by 100. That is the percentage profit. For percentage loss, this one is going to give us the loss over the original value multiplied by 100. So this is the percentage profit, this is the percentage loss. Now let us now approach this from the practical point of view by looking at various questions. So we are asked to calculate the percentage change, that is profit or loss, when $25 becomes $32 and when $60 becomes $48. So we shall start with the first one. They are asking for percentage change, where the change could be either profit or loss, or it could be gain or loss. So the very first thing we need to know is, if there is a gain, we shall call it the change, we shall call the change what? A profit. So first one, if 25 became 32, there is a gain. So we say profit is equals to what final one, which we have 32 minus 25. 32 minus 25. When you subtract this, you'll get it is $7. So our profit is $7. Percentage profit is equals to profit you made, which is 7, over the cost, over the original value, which is 25, multiplied by 100 over 1. So by 25 is 1, by 25 here is 4. So you'll get what you get here as a percentage profit is 28 it gives us 28%. So we are able to identify first the profit, and then we to calculate the percentage profit using the profit that you are able to identify initially up here. For the second part, we've been asked to find the percentage change here. So I'll ask you, what is the change? If at all it's $60 has become $48, what is the change? Is the change representing profit or it is representing loss? So the change here is clear. 60 has fallen to 48, therefore it is representing a loss. So to calculate the loss, it is simply, we said to calculate the loss, it is not the selling over there minus the original. This time it is first the 60 minus the 48, which will give us $12. Now from the $12, we now go ahead and calculate the percentage loss. Percentage loss here is 12 over the original value, which is what? Our original value is 60 multiplied by 100. So 12 goes into 60, although we can have it by 10, because this of 1 by 10 is 6, and by 10 here is 10. So by 6 is 1 by 6 is 2. 2 multiplied by 10, you get your percentage is simply 20%. And remember, it is a percentage loss. So the 20%, 60 changing into 48 represents a 20% loss. Now, I want us to get into word problems, and now in word problems, you can see what is taking place, identify the kind of change that is taking place, and then calculate your percentages. So solving worded problems. Rose buys a ticket to a concert for $125, but is later unable to go, so she sells the ticket to her friend for $75. Question: calculate the percentage loss she made. Calculate the percentage loss she made. So before we go into percentage loss, we are already aware it's a loss. We calculate what is our loss. Loss is simply the cost, which is 125, minus the selling price, which is 75. When you subtract that, you find that it is equivalent to $50. So there was a loss of $50. Then the next thing is the percentage loss. Percentage loss is equal to the loss, which is 50, over the original or the cost, which is 125, multiplied by 100. This one represents our percentage loss. So here we simplify where possible. This is 100 over 1. So we can look at it this way. By 25 is 2. By 25 here is 5. By 5 is 1. By 5 is 20. 20 multiplied by 2 is 40. So we are talking of a percentage loss of 40%. Therefore, Rose made a percentage loss of 40% by selling her ticket at $75 to a friend. The population of a country in early 2010 was at 22 million 3,926, and the percentage growth was 1.8% per year. So the question is, given this population, how many more people would be there after 1 year? After 1 year. We want to find out after 1 year how many more people would be there. So first we have to calculate the percentage itself. So if the population increase at 1.8%, and this is of the total population, which is 22,003,926. So for us to get, we need to find what is 1.8% of this population, and then we find the end of 1 year. So what is 1.8% increase of 22 million? Okay, to calculate the population at the end of 1 year, we are saying it increases by 1.8% of the population, and population in 2010 was 22,003,926. So what is 1.8% of that? So it will be 1.8 over 100 multiplied by the population. So when you do that, you'll find that the population increased by now, these are human beings. You cannot write there 0.6. It is not 0.6, so they are people. So the population, when it increases by 1.8, then it means that it will increase by 396,070. Then the question that comes now in is, how many people are there after that 1 year? So you'll take this population that was there 2010, add the population of after 1 year. So when we add that, you find that our new population now will be 22,399,996. That is after 1 year. So when we progress to the second part, that is part 2, it is asking us, how about after 2 years? I want you to know that this population is not increasing by 1.8 of only the 22. 22 million is not constant. If it's 22 million this year, then next year we shall work out at 1.8% of the new figure, which is now here. So we have seen that after 1 year, the population here is so when we talk of 2 years, it means now the following year, we again increase the population by 1.8% of the figure there. So this one will be 1.8% multiplied by 22 million So in the second year, the population would increase by 403,199. If it is 9.9, this case, these are human beings, we don't round off upwards, we just truncate. So we then take this one, when you add this, that is 22. So when you do add this, the new population after 2 years will be 22,803,195. This will be the population after, this will be our population after what we call 2 years. So this will keep on progressing step by step. And it's very important that when we advance in business mathematics, you'll find that this can be easily done using a formula that will always give us an appreciation, so that we can easily calculate the population even in 100 years to come or 20 years to come, of which for now we are not going through that. But I want you to know that every year, as it increases by 1%, do not by 1.8%, do not take the percentage, the original percentage. So after 1 year it increases. When you start looking for the second year, take 1.8% of the new year. So for this is the second year. So if you are to look for the third year, there is an easier way again, which is slightly better. So the population after 3 years would be 100% plus 1.8% of what you have there. So this one is the same as 1 or 1.8%. Then we multiply by what we have. And this one will give us a straight total population after 3 years. So when you multiply that, you are getting now after 3 years, by multiplying, we get it will be 23 million. After 3 years, the population will be 101.8% of the previous population, which will equate itself to 23,213,652. So if you choose to look for the fourth year again, you will get 101.8% of 23,213 and 652. So at your own time, I want you to go on finding the population change and finding the percentage at any given time. So this is how we'll use percentage increase or percentage change to get the population of a country, or to calculate the rate at which the population is growing at. So it can be used to find to grow as far as possible, but the rate remains constant, while the basis or the figure that you base is per the previous year. So if you are talking of 1.8% of this year, next year you'll talk of 1.8% of the population, or as per next year. That's why I said you will not use a constant figure to keep on adding to the figures and say now this is 10 years. So in general, percentage change, profit and loss is used in many areas in our daily lives. I want you to be able to handle it, be it on profit or loss, or even in statistics, but without any problem, because it simply requires you to know which one is our original value, which one is our new value, and what is our change. That is it for today. Thank you.